family of Tim Nicholson, who was a long-standing Logan Township resident, but he was also Reeve of Logan Township. And over the years, he's been a great adversary to us, especially with regards to the library in Moncton and a few other things, and really was involved in his community. And I think we should remember his passing at this particular time. And just so you know, we did lower the flags at half-mast, which is protocol for a former Reeve. So we'll just have a moment of reflection. Thank you. Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll call this meeting to order. Are there any additions or deletions, Carla?
Yes, it has been published. However, since the original circulation of the agenda, we have item 6.2.1, and that is a report for B3720. That's a consent application report, as well as 6.3.1, the head librarian CEO's report.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so a motion would be in order to accept the confirmation of the agenda with a couple of those amendments. So moved by Councillor Vink, seconded by Councillor Marshall. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Does anybody have a conflict of interest with anything on the agenda tonight? Dean, so noted. Do you want to publicly say which part?
Yes. Section 9.2 Wasman Municipal Drain Improvements 2019 and 14.1 the confirmatory bylaw.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Dean. All right. Brings us down to item number 4, the consent agenda. And there are 13 items there. Is there anything in that consent agenda that anybody would like more clarification on or would like pulled and dealt with separately? Or we're good to pass it? Seeing no hands go up, I would look, I guess, to a motion that we accept the consent agenda. Moved by Councillor Murray and seconded by Councillor Bell. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. All right. So at this time, got to get the right one here. Okay. So at this time, 7:04, we'll adjourn our council meeting and proceed into a public meeting. So I need a motion to recess this part of our council meeting and open a public meeting at 7:04. Councillor Marshall and Councillor Rose, all those in favor? Okay, opposed if any, that is carried. All right, so the public meeting is being called to order at 7:05. The public meeting is being held in accordance with Section 34 of the Planning Act. And are there any declarations of pecuniary interest by any member of council? Seeing none, I will now ask the clerk for the purpose of this public meeting.
The purpose of this public meeting of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of West Perth is to review an application for a proposed amendment to Bylaw 100, 1998, the zoning bylaw of the Municipality of West Perth, and to allow interested members of the public the opportunity to ask questions or offer comments with regard to the application. Council will not make a decision on the application at this public meeting. Based on the recommendations and information received at this public meeting, amending zoning bylaws will be presented for approval at a regular council meeting. If any member of the public would like to be notified in writing of the decision on the application, they are to provide their name and mailing address and email to the clerk this evening via email clerk@westperth.com. A person or public body may appeal the decision if they have made an oral submission at this public meeting or a written submission to council prior to the passing of the bylaws. Notice was given by mail to all landowners within 120 meters of the land affected by the bylaw and to those agencies as prescribed by regulation. A sign advertising tonight's meeting was posted on the property on October 13th, 2020. In response to the circulation and posting of the notice, the following correspondence was received and included in the circulated agenda package. And that was from Ruth Ann and Danny Glore.
Okay, thank you, Carla. And with us, I believe, for this meeting by Zoom, we have Bob Scott, I believe, and we have Dave Hannon, agent for the applicant, and as well, we have Ruth Ann and Dan Glore. So those people are online with us as well. This public meeting for a zoning bylaw amendment, the application was initiated by the property owner 789274 Ontario Inc. and affects the property described as lots 1 to 71, Plan 44M73, former Township of Logan, all registered lots on Henry Street, Arden Crescent, and Duncan Street, Plan 44M73, Mitchell Ward in West Perth. I will now call upon Adam Bettridge, planner for the Municipality of West Perth, to review the application. And we don't have Adam, do we? Yes, we do. There he is. Okay, good. I didn't see your name or didn't see you. So Adam, take it away.
Good evening, Your Worship. Sorry, I was out of the office unexpectedly last week, so did not have an opportunity to finalize a planning report. I do note that I did get, in my absence from the office, a handful of emails from neighbors simply asking for further information, and I wasn't able to respond to them. I think I responded to one in advance of tonight's meeting, but I was not able to respond to everyone. So they may be listening in through YouTube or other means, but they were simply asking for more information about the zoning bylaw amendment. And I do know that the applicant's agent, Mr. Hannum, is on the line to speak further about this. But what I can say is the zoning bylaw includes a provision for maximum lot coverage on a residential lot. So lot coverage deals with the footprint of a dwelling and any other structures or buildings that would be on that property, including decks and rear unenclosed covered porches. It doesn't include things like basketball nets or driveways. So that's what the zoning bylaw is seeking to allow is an increase for this subdivision only. It's not just for every lot in the R3 zone in West Perth, but for this new subdivision to have an increase from 40% to 45%. I should also note that the zoning bylaw also has a separate standalone provision for minimum landscaped open space. That is a requirement that makes sure that each lot has a sufficient percentage of the property left with unbuilt or unbuilt upon impervious areas such as grass and lawn and landscaping. And that is to allow an absorption through storm events and make sure that the neighborhoods remain aesthetically appealing in a residential context. I don't see, so from a planning perspective, the setbacks aren't being reduced. So it's not like any house being built in the subdivision can be built closer to any neighbor, whether it's the side yards or the rear yards, but rather on that footprint, the dwelling can include such things as rear decks and covered patios and things that we're starting to see more of, whereas people are looking to enjoy more home and deal with less yards. So each property will still have a front yard. It's not, houses aren't getting bigger, moving closer to lot lines. And the minimum landscaped open space is going to be maintained. What our concern is on this is, all that aside, is will the subdivision still function from an overall lot grading, drainage, and stormwater management perspective? And from that aspect, we have circulated and sought comment from the municipality's engineering consultant from BM Ross, and they have no concern with regards to this increase, noting that the overall subdivision has been designed in order for each lot to have a maximum lot coverage of 45%. So I will turn it over to perhaps Mr. Hannum to perhaps speak further to this, but I am available to answer any questions that council or the public may have.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Yeah, if you can just stay on online here, and if there are anything that comes up, you might be able to help us out. So I'm going to get into the formal part of it here, and I will ask if there's people that wish to speak in support of the application. I will ask if there's anybody opposed to the application, and then I will ask if the applicant or agent wishes to speak. And then finally, any general comments and questions from council. So at this stage, I will ask, is there anybody online here that wishes to speak in support of the application, other than the applicant or their agent? Okay, is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Okay, I don't see anybody. All right, at this time, I will ask the applicant or their agent to speak at this time. And I believe Dave Hannum is maybe going to speak.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. I have got some graphics here that I can share with you, just an overall plan of subdivision that may help if any questions pop up, if people would like to see it. I can share my screen if you like.
Sure, that sounds like a good idea.
Okay. So can everyone see that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm a senior associate with Zelenka Priamo. We represent a BNS Construction, which is the local builder, Bob Scott. He couldn't make it this evening, so it's just myself. But we're here this evening hoping for a positive endorsement from council for the proposed rezoning. In the absence of a staff report, I thought I might just take the opportunity to probably do a little bit more talking than I need to, but just to provide a quick overview on the project as well. So can you see the slide here? Yes. So I'm sure that you're all familiar with the location of the subject lands, which are designated residential in the OP and zoned residential medium. The 71 lot subdivision was approved by this council back in August of 2019 and has been designed to provide all the requisite facets to deliver a high quality development. Municipal roads and services are now constructed. All the works have been inspected by municipal staff, signed off, and the release of securities held against that release is going to be imminent. Building permits have been approved for about a dozen or so lots, and construction on dwellings is underway. There's also building permits for other lots and dwellings likely to be submitted in the near future. Our client, Bob Scott, is the owner of the majority of the lots in that subdivision. So I'll just dig in a little bit further. So with regards to the subdivision, there was a concurrent rezoning application that was approved by this council at the same time, which rezoned the subject lands from future development through to residential medium density. At that time, no special zoning provisions were sought, just the rezoning of the lands. However, as detailed design of some of these future homes have been refined, it's been identified that some of them need an increase in lot coverage. This request for increase in lot coverage is generally needed because, as Adam alluded to, under the zoning bylaw, floor areas for such components as decks and that are above grade by 200 mils or 20 centimeters and decks that are roofed contribute towards that overall calculation of lot coverage. And the increase in lot coverage will provide greater flexibility for the future home builders with regards to building design. The inclusion of decks, and particularly integrated cover decks, can provide for year-round protection, and these are private amenity areas that have been indicated are desirable components for future occupiers. And this particular zoning amendment proposes to increase the maximum lot coverage from 40 to 45 as a blanket request. However, it's anticipated that not all of the future dwellings will be constructed to the lot coverage of 45. And as I mentioned earlier, a dozen or so building permits have already been approved where no increase was needed. There was a recent example where the increase was needed, and that was on lot 11 of this subdivision. And due to the need to get under construction quickly, a minor variance application was recently submitted for the increase in lot coverage. And this application was thoroughly reviewed by West Perth planning staff and their consulting engineer, and supported and approved by the Committee of Adjustment in October. So that was really just a timing issue as to why we went through that. Following that application, we had some discussions with Adam. It was considered that the most efficient operation in terms of time and resources was to submit the current zoning bylaw amendment application to request this blanket request, rather than doing piecemeal individual minor variances for those relevant lots that needed to increase the respected coverage. The benefit of doing the blanket provision also is that all future purchases of dwellings are fully aware that there isn't of what the lot coverage is, rather than a purchaser buying a lot and then thinking, oh well, their lot coverage is only 40%, then someone applies for a minor variance and people become annoyed about that. So this is a clear message that there is what the lot coverage is for the entire subdivision. As Adam alluded to, the request is supported by MTE's memo that confirms that the engineering is adequate as originally designed to increase the lot coverage. As I said, once again, and that review was done on all of the lots going to 45%, but as I indicated, some of them have already been built to a coverage of 40. And apart from this modest request, all of the existing residential medium density 3 zoning provisions remain in place. And as Adam indicated, there's no increase in lot boundaries, setbacks, landscaped open space. So we don't feel as though there'd be any discernible significant impacts on adjoining landowners with regards to that. So just in conclusion, we feel as though the proposed zoning meets all the relevant planning policies. As I indicated, the request will provide greater flexibility for some home builders to integrate these desirable components. That we don't anticipate that there will be any need to change any other regulations within the existing zone. And the resulting residential development will still remain compatible with that was originally approved, and that's emerging now without any significant impact on surrounding landowners. So that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions people may have. I can stop sharing and then jot back to the subdivision plan if needed.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Hannum. And yeah, now I can see everybody again.
Yep, sure.
So at this stage of the game here, I'll ask if there's any general comments or any questions from council. Deputy Mayor Ait?
Dave, obviously you knew you were going to ask for this. Why didn't you just do it at the start? Otherwise, the letter from MTE that's already at 45%. Like, why do we have to do it 40% and then come back? Why didn't you just be upfront and say you wanted 45% a year and a half ago?
Look, to be honest, there's nothing devious or sinister about this request. That information wasn't available to us at the time when we did our rezoning. And to be honest, it's far more efficient if we were doing our original zoning application to request it, it would be the same analysis that we would provide at that point in time. So it was an oversight with regards to the detail of the building designs that are coming forward now. We didn't have that information when we did the original zoning. That's really why it wasn't requested there, and otherwise we would have done that.
Okay, Councillor Marshall?
Yeah, just either to Dave or Adam. So you talked about this being for kind of decks or covered decks. Is there anything that prevents it from actually being increase in size of the actual residence, or is it would this solely be an affected deck or covered deck?
I'm happy to answer
Yeah,
that.
go ahead.
There's-
I'm looking to see who made the first move here.
in terms of zoning, no, there's nothing to make a distinction between something that is enclosed or not. But obviously, if you're increasing that area for something that's enclosed, then it's still eating into that same percentage. So that you wouldn't be able to provide the additional decking area or covered decking area in replace of that. So, these homes are single story. They're well designed, and some of these components, particularly the covered deck, for some of these homes are integrated into it. So, for all intents and purposes, other than it being having no back wall, it is enclosed in that respect. But the purpose is really to provide, as Adam alluded to, less maintenance in terms of less garden, perhaps, but also to provide that year-round private amenity area.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Tam.
My question, Dave, is we've already approved a minor variance of I think it was lot 11 for 46%. And the bylaw is not included tonight. So if we have another 2 weeks to the next meeting and then a 20-day appeal period, is there going to be requests for another minor variance or more in the meantime?
No, there isn't. When we spoke to planning staff about what the most efficient process would be from a timing perspective, it was determined that the zoning was. Otherwise, we may have had to submit individual minor variances for relevant lots, but we're hopeful that this process will go smoothly and we won't need to do that.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Other questions? Ruth Ann? You're muted, Ruth Ann.
There.
Sorry.
There. Okay.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My concern is if somebody builds a full house at the 45%, it doesn't seem like there's any long-term plan for the town of Mitchell. And I think with the zoning the way it is, it should be kept the way it is. If people want a covered deck, then they've got the wrong lot. But if you're going to have somebody with 45% full house and somebody 45% covered deck, somebody else less than 40%, there's no consistency. And then, I foresee other people building the 45% full house and then wanting a variance on that.
Okay. Dave or Adam, who wants to answer that one?
Through you, Your Worship, I'll try and answer the question. So the zoning bylaw that the municipality employs is from 1998, and these provisions have been in place for that time. And the county's working on an update of a long-term plan, and that'll speak to how the communities in Perth County are going to be developed. The way planning works in the province of Ontario is following the County of Perth official plan, the zoning bylaw will be updated. But what we're dealing with is a provision that's 30 years old, some odd, and from a planning and engineering perspective, an increase from 40 to 45% is negligible. It's been determined that it's not going to have an impact on this subdivision. It might be somewhat appropriate that we look at lot coverages for moving forward. But why we're going to focus on this subdivision specifically, we know this subdivision can handle maximum lot coverages of 45%. We don't know if the older sections of the town of Mitchell, the old parts of downtown with older infrastructure, older dwellings and older properties can handle such of an increase. On this subdivision, we know it can work. And we know that people who are looking to buy houses in this day and age are looking for a different type of product than what was generally sought after and expected at a 35 to 40% lot coverage. So what we're saying is it's appropriate for the subdivision. It wasn't contemplated when the subdivision was designed from a zoning perspective. It wasn't requested, but it's works. And as Dave, Mr. Hannum has alluded to, this process is probably a lot more efficient for applicants, homeowners, counselors, the neighborhood's time to deal with one zoning amendment for the whole subdivision, as opposed to 1, 5, 10 minor variances that essentially are going to be asking for the same thing, because people are wanting to have these extra amenities that don't fit if the lot coverage is 40%.
And that's the problem with the small lots. So everything has to have a variance. So that's why I'm saying, is there a long-term plan and the town sticks to it? Otherwise, we're going to end up like the big city and everybody's just jam-packed in. I think people live in Mitchell because it's not the city. That's what's attractive to people.
And I can maybe add a little bit here, Ruth Ann, but the province is advocating smaller lots and higher density, and that's what we're faced with. And and certainly in our area where it's a largely rural area, the aspect of protecting as much farmland as you can kicks in, and hence the density increase in subdivisions. I don't know, Dave or Mr. Hannum, if you want to add anything more to what Adam has said.
Well, certainly as part of the original applications, we were encouraged to provide a mix of densities and unit types, which we did in this particular instant. What I would say is, with regards to concern about potential impact on lot coverage, that's just one marker in terms of whether a development can be perceived to be an overdevelopment of a particular lot. And these are pretty, like compared to elsewhere in Ontario, they're pretty big lots. But normally other key markers that would raise alarm bells would be things like, are they requesting changes to setback requirements? Are they changing or requesting regulations to the amount of landscaped open space on a site? And those are normally markers when you're looking at those sorts of things that it potentially really rings alarm bells about overdevelopment. But we're not doing that in this instance. As Adam indicated, the actual building envelope that you can create a dwelling in may be increasing as a percentage of the total lot area, but it's not going to get any closer to any neighboring properties from that's already permitted.
Okay, thank you. Somebody else had their hand up. Councillor Trinkowski.
Thank you, Your Worship. But I guess I was going to say what you said earlier in response to Ruth Ann's query about the lot sizes and what the provincial directive is on the land use policy. But also, I guess I wanted to add that at Committee of Adjustment, we're already accepting minor variances on side yards and that sort of thing to accommodate, I guess, what would we say, Adam, that I guess retrofitting or renovations or additions to existing homes, if I remember correctly. So we're already doing this on other properties in other ways. So it's not an entirely new thing. What's being proposed here tonight is not an entirely new thing. It's been happening all along, if I'm not mistaken, through Committee of Adjustment submissions to that committee.
Okay, any further questions from anybody here? Okay, Councillor Marshall.
Is this something we're seeing more of from other contractors? Is this something we should be expecting more of as we go forward, asking for the greater lot coverage, or is this just a one-off thing here?
That's maybe an Adam question. I don't know.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. I think what we're waiting for is a new County of Perth official plan that's going to kind of steer what types of dwelling units we're going to see, what type of development, what type of new residential communities we're going to see. And I would expect to see in those newer developments that we will see an increase, a bit bigger buildings on smaller lots, or buildings taking up a larger proportion of lots, and that's to deal with. We're dealing with new things that we didn't contemplate 30 years ago: accessibility, proximity to downtowns, and walkability. So it's great to have backyards. We will still have backyards and all those great things. But I think especially from our retiring community, they want to see an easier house and property to maintain. And this is one thing that it helps achieve that. But like I've always said, one of the main components, there's two principal components for lot coverage, that's to make sure that the aesthetics of the neighborhood are maintained, but also the functioning for stormwater management, drainage, and lot grading is maintained also. And we're making sure that this works in this aspect. So I don't see this as too much of a concern for this subdivision here.
Good. Anybody else? Okay. I would like to thank those in attendance for their comments. Should council proceed with the adoption of the zoning bylaw amendment, notice of passing will be provided as prescribed by the Planning Act, and a 20-day appeal period to the local planning appeal tribunal is in effect. At this time, I'm going to ask that we close this public meeting. But before I do, I would just like to ask Adam to stick around after we close it for just a minute and go from there. So resolution is that Council of Municipality of West Perth now closes this public meeting at 7:32 and reconvenes the regular council meeting. So we have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Rose, Councillor Harold, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? I think that's carried. Thank you. So very good. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
So yeah, I've asked Adam to stick on because I think it might be the last time that we're going to have Adam with us, and I just wanted to wish you well in your future endeavor moving south. Malahide Municipality, I understand it is. So yeah, we just wish you all the best, Adam. We do wish you were here with us, but our loss is going to be their gain, I'm sure.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. You guys treated me with great respect and professionalism, and I did appreciate spending nights with yourselves. All the best in the future. Certainly wish I could have stuck around, but yes, there's an opportunity waiting for me down south in Elgin County.
When opportunity knocks, you've got to really look at it, and it looks like you have. So wishing you all the best, Adam.
Much appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, get my papers in order here. So I do believe, and Carla can jump in here, we need a motion to go into our second public meeting, right? Okay, thank you. And you're muted, by the way, but I did hear you. So a motion to that we go into a Perth County official plan amendment public meeting at 7:34. Actually, Doug, I guess you could move that, eh? And I'll agree with that. So it's just Doug and I. And are there any declarations of pecuniary interest by any member here? And I guess I'm looking at Doug. Okay, so I'm going to at this time ask the clerk for the purpose of this public meeting.
Yes, thank you. The purpose of this public meeting pursuant to the Ontario Planning Act is to review an application for an official plan amendment and to allow interested members of the public the opportunity to ask questions or offer comments with regard to the application. Council will not make a decision on the application at this public meeting. Based on the recommendations and information received at this meeting, an official plan amendment will be presented for approval at a Perth County Council meeting. Those in attendance wishing to make comment concerning the application will be given an opportunity to do so. Anyone wishing to appeal council's decision must make a verbal submission during this public meeting or have made a written submission to council. If any member of the public would like to be notified in writing of the decision on the application, you must make a written request to the clerk of the County of Perth at tsager@perthcounty.ca. Notice inviting persons to the public meeting were mailed on October 13th, 2020 to all landowners within 120 meters of the subject property and emailed to those agencies as prescribed by regulation. The notice was posted on the subject property as well as the county website advertising tonight's meeting on October 13th, 2020. Correspondence was not received at the time of preparation of the agenda.
Okay, thanks, Carla. So this is a public meeting for a proposed official plan amendment affecting the property described as part lots 29 to 31 concession, East Mitchell Road, Fullerton, municipal address of 2492 Road 137, owned by Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. And before I go on, I keep doing this all the time. With us, joining us here tonight for the public meeting, we have Dave Gundrum, of course, the planner from the county. We have Mark Stone, who is agent on behalf of Upper Thames. We have Spencer McDonald from Upper Thames as well, who's their planner. And we have Bill Mackey from Upper Thames as well. So we have fairly good representation for Upper Thames to answer comments. And of course, sitting in as observers is the rest of the West Perth Council. So I will now call on David Gundrum, Planner and Land Division Secretary Treasurer on behalf of Perth County to review the official plan amendment application. David, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. Members of County Council, the owners are seeking an amendment to the County of Perth official plan that would apply on a site-specific basis to separate farm properties located within both the Municipality of West Perth as well as the Township of Perth South to allow for future severance of existing dwellings as surplus farm dwellings. Criteria for the severance of surplus farm dwellings in the County of Perth official plan requires that the land on which the surplus farm dwelling is situated must be operated or will be operated as part of a consolidated farm operation, and separately that the farm property on which a surplus farm dwelling is located must be eligible for the farm property class tax rate program, and the property owner must also have a valid farm business registration number. Official plan amendment number 193 is seeking relief from these requirements. Decisions on County of Perth official plan amendments are required to be consistent with the provincial policy statement, or PPS. Under section 2 of the PPS, the document states that lot creation in prime agricultural areas is discouraged and may only be permitted for, among other things, a residence surplus to a farming operation as a result of farm consolidation. The PPS defines a residence surplus to a farming operation as an existing habitable farm residence rendered surplus as a result of farm consolidation, or in other words, the acquisition of additional farm parcels to be operated as one farm operation. The eventual intent of the OPA is to permit severance of 5 new non-farm residential lots through relief granted from the severance policies for residences surplus to a farming operation as found in the County of Perth official plan. As noted in the justification report that was provided by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority's agent, the UTRCA acquired the subject properties over a period of time beginning in the 1960s to secure land holdings that would be required to facilitate the construction of the planned Glengowan Dam and Reservoir project. In December of 2018, the UTRCA officially canceled this planned infrastructure project. During ownership of the subject properties, the Conservation Authority has leased the tillable areas of each property to various farm operators who, through each lease, have used these areas of land for agricultural production. The justification report states that the UTRCA has pursued an active farm stewardship role throughout its ownership by including recommended tillage, cropping, and environmental stewardship best management practices specific to each farm property. The UTRCA also leases or has leased the existing farm dwellings that are found on each of the subject properties to private tenants, therefore contributing to a wider and expanded supply of rural housing options for county residents over the course of many years. While it has been demonstrated that the UTRCA assembled a farm property portfolio associated with the planned dam and reservoir project by acquiring the subject properties containing existing farm dwellings at various points over time, and has subsequently leased these properties to farm operators for farming purposes, the Conservation Authority itself, as owner of the subject lands, is not a farm operator. The policies of the County of Perth official plan, which are directly referenced and informed by the PPS policies and definitions, are intended to limit the ability to sever existing farm dwellings specifically to active landowning farm operators, thereby encouraging expansion and or long-term continuance of existing farm operations while preserving rural housing stock. The UTRCA does not qualify as a landowning farm operator and therefore has not operated the subject properties together as a consolidated farm operation. The proposed severances that would result should OPA number 193 be approved would not directly contribute to either the expansion or long-term continuance of an existing farm operation. A draft amendment has been provided for consideration, which is generally consistent with the application and can be found under the attached Schedule J to our report. If OPA number 193 is approved by County of Perth Council, related consent applications would be considered by the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its designate at a later point in time. County staff are recommending that County Council receive our report for information, and that County Council also receive comments from the public for consideration of the proposed official plan amendment, while reserving the decision as to whether or not to adopt the amendment for a future council meeting date to be considered. I will note that in our reporting to Municipality of West Perth Council that we are recommending that West Perth Council recommend to County Council that the application be denied in this case. I'd be happy to answer any questions that members of the public or members of County Council may have concerning the application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dave. So at this time, I will ask if there is anybody wishing to speak in support of the application other than the applicant. Is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition of this application? All right. The applicant or agent wish to add anything at this time?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I do have a PowerPoint presentation. If I could share that on the screen.
Yep. If you share your screen, that'll be great.
All right. And is that visible?
Yep.
Okay,
good.
Terrific. Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council and also members of the public that may be attending. My name is Mark Stone. I'm a land use planner with MLS Planning Consulting. I was retained by the Conservation Authority late last year to provide advice and assist with this application. Just so you know, joining me this evening from the Conservation Authority are Spencer McDonald, he's a land use planner, and Bill Mackey, he's the lands and facilities supervisor. So I'll be guiding us or taking us through the presentation, but both Spencer and Bill are available if any questions come up that I can't answer. So commencing back in the 1960s, the Conservation Authority purchased various properties in West Perth and Perth South as a land assembly in anticipation of the Glengown Dam and Reservoir project. For many decades, the Conservation Authority has rented these properties, properties to local farmers, and has also maintained and separately rented existing dwellings on each of these properties. As background, and it's documented in my report, the Conservation Authority issues tenders for the rental of these properties and has done so for many years. Each of the successful bidders enters into a farm lease agreement with the Conservation Authority, generally for a period of 4 years. I believe the Conservation Authority is now actually extending that to 5-year leases. And the rent provides long-term revenue sources to support other conservation authority programs. In December of 2018, the dam and reservoir project was canceled, and the Conservation Authority approached me because they intend to retain and continue to rent these agricultural properties to local farmers, but also dispose of the surplus farm dwellings. And as you can imagine, the Conservation Authority is not in the business of maintaining and renting residential properties, but has done so given the circumstances related to the once planned dam and reservoir project. The Conservation Authority doesn't really have the capacity to continue to be a residential landlord, but sees benefit in maintaining the larger properties. And the Conservation Authority, as mentioned, will continue to use this as an opportunity to demonstrate and support best management practices. So a county official plan amendment is required to modify certain policies to permit the creation of separate lots for those existing residential uses. And I should mention that in the fall of 2019, the Conservation Authority did pre-consult with county staff regarding this proposal. And we also consulted with the province at the end of 2019. So the proposed county official plan applies to 5 properties, 1 in West Perth and 4 in Perth South. The properties, and I think you can see my pointer here, there are actually 3 pieces or parcels that are adjacent to each other. And then we have this property in West Perth and another in Perth South. The properties range in size from about 27 hectares to just over 180 hectares, or 68 to well over 440 acres in size. All of the properties are designated agriculture according to the county official plan, with some other designations applying to some of the properties or portions of part of the properties, including natural resources and so on. The property located in West Perth is 27 hectares in size and is located at 2492 Road 137 north of line 12. The property is linear in shape, and the existing dwelling is located near the lot frontage around the midpoint of the lot, of the frontage of that lot. The property, again, in West Perth is designated agriculture, and there's a combination of zoning that applies to the property, agricultural plus constraint area, flood regulation area, and regulated flood area. So as mentioned by the county, the requested amendments to the county official plan relate to subsections A and F of section 5.6.3.1. Subsection A, just in summary, speaks to operational requirements and the eligibility of farming operations. And then subsection F requires that a property is eligible for a property class tax rate program, and the owner must have a valid business registration number. And again, because of the unique circumstances, and I want to emphasize this, we're dealing with very unique circumstances here. The CA, the Conservation Authority, does not have a farm business registration number, but the farmers who lease and farm these lands do. I'll discuss our position with respect to the requested exceptions to these sections in just a minute. And so before I get into my summary, I just want to make a few points. I understand the province has not commented on the application, but I would like to speak to the provincial policies and also respond to comments in the county staff reports. With respect to provincial policy statement consistency, the proposal is consistent with the vast majority of relevant policies by preserving rural housing stock, and the size of the proposed remnant lots will be able to sustain agriculture. Section 2.3.4.1C of the PPS states that a residence surplus to a farming operation as a result of farm consolidation may be permitted if the new lot is the minimum size needed to accommodate the use and on-site services. And as we've indicated in our submission, the Conservation Authority has indicated that the lot sizes will be minimized in accordance with this policy. And then section 2.3.4.1C again also states that the planning authority will ensure new residential dwellings are prohibited on remnant parcels of farmland created by the severance. And once again, I would say that the Conservation Authority has agreed to prohibitions on new residential dwellings on each of the remnant farm lots. Now, the PPS definition of residence surplus to a farming operation does speak to existing habitable farm residences rendered surplus as a result of farm consolidation. And that is that the acquisition of additional farm parcels to be operated as one farm operation. The residences that are on these 5 properties are habitable and are not required or considered surplus because they are not required by the farmers who expand their operations through the rental of these lands. And again, because of this unique circumstances, the CA has purchased and consolidated their holdings starting back in the early 1960s and have maintained and rented these consolidated holdings to farmers for many decades. And one last note on the PPS. Certainly consistency is a requirement of that document, but it's always been my understanding that the wording is intended to also provide some flexibility to allow for what I would call practical and innovative application of policies based on local circumstances. And I think this is applicable in this circumstance. With respect to county official plan conformity, again, the proposal meets the vast majority of policies related to surplus farm lots, including that the lands are all located in the county. All of the dwellings on the 5 parcels were built at least 10 years ago. The sizes of the proposed surplus farm dwelling lots will be based on the minimum required to accommodate the residential use and any existing on-site services. And again, also the Conservation Authority has no objection to restrictions or prohibitions on new dwellings on the remnant farm parcels. Specifically with respect to section 5.6.3.1 of the county official plan, the Conservation Authority intends to continue its longstanding approach to leasing these lands to farmers. The lands consolidated by the Conservation Authority have been used for many years for agricultural purposes. The proposal by the Conservation Authority meets the spirit of these policies, in my view, in that these lands are operated by local farmers who have multiple farm holdings. Because of the very unique circumstances, the issue at hand is that the Conservation Authority may not qualify as an eligible farm operation as defined in the county official plan, even though the lands owned by the Conservation Authority have been farmed for many decades and have been used as part of other consolidated farm operations. In the report, county staff indicate that the Conservation Authority itself, as owner of the subject lands, is not a farm operator. Again, I emphasize this is a special circumstance. This Conservation Authority is not a farmer, but in preparation for the now canceled dam project, the Conservation Authority has created and maintained a unique situation where a public body is supporting the expansion of local farm operations for local farm operators. Also in the report, staff notes that the policies and definitions are designed and intended to limit the ability to sever existing farm dwellings specifically to active land owning farm operators, thereby encouraging expansion and or long-term continuance of existing farm operations while preserving rural stock. Approval of these applications will allow for the continued expansion of existing farm operations, albeit through these lease agreements. They'll also maintain these large farm holdings as proposed. And one of the benefits here is that rural housing stock will be maintained. Lastly, with respect to the official plan amendment itself, or the proposed official plan amendment itself, I want to mention or emphasize that OPAs are intended to often address unique circumstances not contemplated by the policy framework. We contend that this circumstance is the type of situation that is unique and therefore appropriate for consideration via an OPA. So just in summary, the requested amendments to the county official plan are required to address a very unique circumstance as a result of the Conservation Authority's long-term assembly and ownership of these land holdings and the subsequent canceling of the dam project. The long-term agricultural use of these lands will continue. Large land holdings will be maintained. While the Conservation Authority does not have a farm business registration number, every farmer who leases land does possess one. The proposed lots to be severed will be limited to sizes sufficient to accommodate the existing residential uses. Again, Conservation Authority has no objection to prohibitions on restrictions related to new dwellings on the remnant farm parcels, and approval of these applications will help maintain the existing rural housing stock, which provides needed housing and also contributes to the rural character of the area. So that's my presentation. I appreciate it was a long presentation, but so I appreciate your patience. That's my overview, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stone. Now, if you could unshare your screen, I can see the rest of everybody
Okay.
here.
Trying to do that. Second here. Oh, oops. My apologies. I'm a bit locked here.
There we
Okay.
go. That's
There we
good.
go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So at this time, I will ask if there's anybody, I guess, on this Zoom call with any questions or comments. Okay, I don't see. Oh, Spencer, go ahead.
Thank you. Through your worship, the one thing that's worth noting, and again, I think Mark did a good job kind of summarizing things, but the one group that wasn't mentioned was OMAFRA, and we made sure that OMAFRA was also around the table when we met with the province back in December of 2019. We realized this was a unique circumstance, as Mark has demonstrated, so we wanted to get in front of this thing and involve MMAH, as well as OMAFRA, as well as the county, just to make sure that we're proceeding in an appropriate manner.
Okay, thanks, Spencer. Any other comments or questions from anybody? I have a question, and it's probably the dumb question of the night, but and there's likely a logical answer to this, but can conservation authorities get a farm business registration number? I ask. I'm looking at either Upper Thames or the planner, you know?
So I don't want to be definitive. I believe it could, but perhaps Spencer or Bill can comment. Somebody else had raised their hand too.
Yeah, Bill has.
Sorry, I don't have a definitive answer on that.
Yeah, no, it was just a question that I have. Well, you know, Bill, you got a comment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I did approach the office in Guelph to see if we could qualify for a number. I told them what our operation was like, that we rented the land, that we did not participate at all in the cropping of the land. And there was no chance that we could qualify.
Okay.
There was no opportunity for us to get a number based on that. You had to be actively involved in actually farming the land. And
Right.
we were not in that business. We could not do that.
Okay, good,
So,
thank you.
Yes.
No, that's great. And I did see somebody else had their hand up. I'm not sure
Dean.
Was it Dean? Did you have your hand up, Dean?
I did, but disregard it. That's fine.
Okay, all right, so noted. Okay, any other questions? Councillor Harold?
Yes, just a real quick question for comment. How did Upper Thames decide to sever the houses but retain the lands when the project is canceled? Why are we hanging on to the land and just selling the homes?
Spencer, did you want to address that as far as Bill, as far as the discussions with the board and so on?
Address that, Mark. Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for the comment. To Councillor Harold, the biggest thing to note here is that these dwellings are costing us a significant sum of money to simply maintain at the minimum acceptable level each year. So the Conservation Authority is quite frankly losing tens of thousands of dollars each year in maintaining them to that appropriate level. Whereas the farm holdings are a source of revenue, as noted by Mr. Stone. So at this time, it's not pressing that we dispose of them, but what is pressing is that we get out of the rental housing agreement.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Rose?
Yes, not sure how to say this properly. So the Upper Thames Conservation has decided to hang on to this land as a source of income, correct?
Yes, in part. They also work with the farmers through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Rose. Yes, and they also see the benefit. Remember that the Conservation Authority has been renting and working with farmers for decades now, and they see the benefits from their perspective of working with the farmers and stewardship and requirements that they place actually in the lease agreements. And so it's not just the financial component. There are other components to this. But certainly the financial component is key, as mentioned by Spencer.
Okay, that being said then, if there is more increases because of government clawbacks that gets dumped on the municipality, would it not make sense then to free up some of that money that you are sitting on, so it wouldn't be dumped on us, like on West Perth?
Unfortunately, I hate to do the Spencer bill, but I probably need to direct this to you if you can.
Yeah, no, through you, Mr. Mayor, I can try and address Councillor Rose's comment there. Again, we don't have the specifics, or at least I don't have the specific dollar amounts as far as municipal levy and as far as the apportionments and where certain dollars are coming from to fund certain projects. But what I do know is that it is a significant source of revenue for us in renting out these farmlands. We view it as a benefit to the authority. It does further our objectives insofar as we do have a say in how the crop management is done. We're very much involved with the tenant farmers who operate the farms. But there may come a point in time where our authority does take a closer look at our land holdings and decide if we need to pursue more acquisition of floodplain property or wetlands or whatever the case may be, and choose to dispose of some of these lands. I don't have a definitive answer, but I know that it's not pressing, nor has it been considered that we dispose of these at this time.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Wright.
As you can see, if you look at the pictures, the property we have in West Perth is basically a remnant of a useless piece of property. If you've driven that river road, it's very steep uphill, it's all treed. Our property maybe would be 15%, 20% actually workable. If we want people to live in the country with this particular thing, Unfortunately, we'll have to vote against David's proposition not to let it happen. But the whole thing is we are loosening up farmhouse severances. We are doing a new provincial policy statement. If you drive around the country, you'll see all kinds of houses where this farm would have 30 houses overlooking the river. You drive up into the Drayton area, you drive over into Waterloo. I don't know what provincial policy statement they're regulated under, but they have, I said, north of Drayton, I showed them, there's 15 new houses on a farm. And it's out in the country, all in septics, all in wells. I think we have to start to broaden our horizons for our tax base, as opposed to, if these three guys at the bottom here get sick of this, they're going to take a hi-ho in them, tear everyone down. That's 5 less houses. It's happening all over Ontario. It's happening all over West Perth County. People don't want to be landlords. People will pride if they buy that house, fix it back up. So it's just, I guess I'm the only one that gets to vote in the end, Walter. No, we don't even vote here. We just take our suggestion to count.
No, and I maybe
I
should have
shouldn't
jumped.
speak.
I should have jumped in sooner, perhaps, but I just caution you that this is a public meeting, and
Right.
we're to listen to the comments that we receive and not make a judgment at this particular time. Other comments or questions at this time? Okay. Seeing none, I would like to thank those in attendance for their comments. Excuse me. The official plan amendment will proceed to Perth County Council for consideration. If the application is approved, the county will issue its notice of decision as prescribed by the Planning Act, and a 20-day appeal period to the local planning appeal tribunal applies. If you wish to be notified of the decision, you must make a written request to the clerk of the County of Perth at tsager@perthcounty.ca. At this time, I would declare the public meeting closed at 8:08 p.m. and we'll reconvene to a regular council meeting. So thank you. Okay, moving on, we're in regular council at the present time. It brings us down to item number 6 on our agenda, which is reports. And the first one is from Dave Gundrum, planner and Land Division Secretary Treasurer. And it's with regards to official plan amendment OPA 193. Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, which is just what we had the public meeting for. So David, the floor is yours again.
Thank you, Mayor McKenzie. Mayor, members of council, again, just to repeat from the report I gave during the public meeting, the owners of the subject property is located in Municipality of West Perth, as well as Township of Perth South, are seeking an amendment to the County of Perth official plan that would apply on a site-specific basis to allow for future severance of existing dwellings as surplus farm dwellings. Criteria for the severance of surplus farm dwellings in the county official plan require that the land on which the surplus farm dwelling is situated must be operated or will be operated as part of a consolidated farm operation, and separately that the farm property on which a surplus farm dwelling is located must be eligible for the farm property class tax rate program, and that the property owner must also have a valid farm business registration number. OPA number 193 is seeking relief from these requirements. Decisions on County of Perth official plan amendment applications are required to be consistent with the provincial policy statement, or PPS. Section 2341 of the PPS states that lot creation in prime agricultural areas is discouraged and may only be permitted for, among other things, a residence surplus to a farming operation as a result of farm consolidation. PPS defines a residence surplus to a farming operation as an existing habitable farm residence rendered surplus as a result of farm consolidation, which means the acquisition of additional farm parcels to be operated as one farm operation. The eventual intent of the OPA is to permit severance of 5 new non-farm residential lots through the relief that would be granted from the severance policies for surplus farm dwellings in the County of Perth official plan. As noted by the applicant's agent's planning justification report, the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority acquired the subject properties over time, beginning in the 1960s, to facilitate the planned construction of the Glengowan Dam and Reservoir project. As noted in our report in December 2018, the UTRCA officially canceled this planned infrastructure project. During its ownership of the subject farm properties, UTRCA has leased the tillable farm acres on each property to various farm operators who, through each lease, have used these areas of land for agricultural production. The planning justification report provided states that the UTRCA has pursued an active farm stewardship role throughout its ownership by including recommended environmental stewardship and best management practices specific to each farm property. The UTRCA also leases or has leased the existing farm dwellings found on each property to private tenants, thus contributing to a wider supply of rural housing options for county residents over the course of many years. While it has been demonstrated that the UTRCA has assembled a farm property portfolio associated with the Glengowan Dam and Reservoir project by acquiring the subject farm properties at various points over time, subsequently leasing these properties to farm operators for farming purposes, the Conservation Authority itself, as owner of the subject lands, is not a farm operator. The policy of the County of Perth official plan is directly informed and references the PPS policies and definitions as previously noted, and is intended to limit the ability to sever existing farm dwellings specifically to active landowning farm operators, thereby encouraging the expansion or long-term continuance of existing farm operations while preserving rural housing stock. The UTRCA does not qualify as a landowning farm operator in this instance and therefore has not operated the subject properties together as a consolidated farm operation. The proposed severances that would result should OPA 193 be approved would not directly contribute to either the expansion or long-term continuance of an existing farm operation. County planning staff are recommending that West Perth Council recommend to County Council that the proposed official plan amendment, OPA number 193, be denied as it is inconsistent or not consistent with section 2341C of the provincial policy statement and is also not consistent with the PPS definition of residence surplus to a farming operation. Should OPA 193 be approved by County of Perth Council, a related consent to sever applications would be considered at a later point in time by the County of Perth Land Division Committee. That is the summary of our report to West Perth Council and our recommendation regarding the application for official plan amendment. I'd be happy to answer any question that members of West Perth Council may have. Thank you.
We can't hear you, Walter.
Yes, I said whoops. Okay. Thanks, David. Any questions from members of West Perth Council for David? I don't see any hands going up here. Dean, sorry.
So I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around, like, is this the only objection because the Conservation Authority, in somebody's view, it can't be classified as a farm operator? I can't wrap my head around that. Like, is that the only, like, I see a lot of benefits to everyone involved to have these houses severed, but we would have other cases in the county that would be similar to this. Like, what would be any different than the Conservation Authority selling the properties and then individual farmers buying the properties and then severing it themselves? It would be, you're doing the same thing. So why does the Upper Thames Conservation Authority need to divest itself of all of the land in order to get out of the housing rental part of it? I don't understand that.
I don't know, David, do you want to respond to that? Well, actually, we do have, we have a couple here from Upper Thames. I'm not sure if Spencer or Bill Mackey would want to respond to that or not. Spencer?
Through you, Mr. Chair, not necessarily a response as we have the same question ourselves.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments from council? Oh, sorry, Nicholas?
I would tend to agree that the book might not say that we permit it, but I think the spirit of the provincial policy or the county official plan, and we often have this discussion around this table about the conservation authority's core values, and being a landlord, I don't think is one of them. So I would like to see, although I hate to contradict our staff report, I'd like to see West Perth recommend approval to the county.
Anna Marie, you had your hand up.
Yes, I think I agree with you, Nicholas. I think it's important that we recommend that the Upper Thames Conservation Authority be allowed to sever these houses, because it does speak to the spirit of what we're trying to achieve with the surplus farmhouse dwellings. And I think it's important that we make an exception in this case, and that I'm going to vote against denying this application.
Okay, thanks, Anna Marie. Any further comments? Okay, you've placed me in a little bit of an awkward situation here, but we do have a recommendation, and I think what I will do is I will ask for a recommendation, or somebody to make a recommendation here, and then we'll vote on that recommendation if that's the way you want to go. Does that sound okay? Rather than having a recommendation that I read and you vote either for it or against it, if we, and I could do that, I guess it's the same thing, but I just thought it might be cleaner if we read or you tell me what you want in the recommendation. So I'm looking for a volunteer here. Dean?
Well, I guess for my part, I would support a I would recommend that we support the Conservation Authority's effort towards the severance of the houses, and thereby seeking an amendment to the current policy that the county has in place. But I'd like to hear what Councillor Murray also has to say about it as well.
I agree with you, Dean. I would like to, yes, I would like the motion to be that we support the Conservation Authority in the severance of these surplus farm dwellings, and that an exception be made to the official plan.
Nicholas?
And it could say something like that the Municipality of West Perth receive the report, and that the council recommend to County Council about the official plan amendment, similar to us, submitted by the MLS planning consultant on behalf of Upper Thames. The properties be approved as the surplus farmhouse severance option, or something like that.
Okay, I will stagger through it here, and then I guess I'll ask for a mover and seconder. How does that sound? So I'm taking the cue from Nicholas here. So the first part of the motion that we have is fine, that Municipality of West Perth received the report entitled Application for a County Official Plan Amendment by MLS Planning Consulting on behalf of Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, OPA 193, for information, and that the Council of Municipality of West Perth recommend to the Council of the County of Perth that the application for amendment to the County of Perth Official Plan, OPA 193, submitted by MLS Planning Consulting on behalf of Upper Thames River Conservation Authority for property described as part of lots 29 to 31 East Mitchell Road concession, Fullerton Ward, Municipality of West Perth, 911 address 2492 Road 137. And this is where I'm looking for clarification, and I will say from the points that I've got here, be approved as well, it's not inconsistent. I forget what the wording was that you had.
Just stop as be approved is good enough,
Just
probably.
approved, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, end of motion at that point. Is that sound okay with the rest of council? That's what you want?
Yes.
That okay. So I'll go back for a mover and seconder of that, and if depending which way it goes, we can change the motion again. That's not a problem. So do I have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Trinkowski and seconded by Councillor Murray. Now I'm going to open it up. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Marshall.
I think the ideal here would be that the Upper Thames sold the whole parcel. So I think this land should be in the hands of private landowners. I think that's a better use of it than the Upper Thames using it for rent out. I don't think that should be there. As was mentioned, I don't think leasing is their prime, but given the circumstances, and I think this is the best second option to go ahead and sever these residential lands. So.
Yeah, and I guess my comment, Jeff, is that that's not what is before us at this particular time. It's the severing of the houses that we have to deal with that's on their agenda. So
I agree. I just I do think that the best move would be to sell the lands, but given that that's not an option, I think this is a acceptable second choice. So
okay, good. All right. Any further comments or discussion on that? Dean, sorry.
I guess all I can offer in addition, the properties, these properties probably never should have been bought in the first place for the dam project. It was probably it seemed like a good idea at the time, but in hindsight, it was an ill-conceived idea. So this is the best possible solution to that situation, I think. If the Conservation Authority had to sell the land entirely, they would not only lose the revenue of that rental, but they would lose a bit of influence on how these lands are utilized, and in terms of, I guess, protecting the water quality and the environment and so forth. So that's my additional comments.
Okay, thanks, Dean. I guess you got to keep in mind too, and I hope I don't stick my foot in my mouth here, but back in the 60s, the purpose of that dam was to serve a purpose for the City of London. And over time, efficiencies have developed in the way that they can treat their effluent and one thing and another. And so the need for that has decreased over the years to the point where they don't need it at all. So it just shows you what's happened over the last, say 50, 60 years. Any further discussion on this? Okay, are we ready for the vote? And the motion is that, in plain English, is that we support what the conservation authorities are trying to do and are in favor of them severing the houses. That's it in a nutshell. Am I correct? If you want to nod, that was my understanding of what's been said. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? Okay, so that is carried. So thank you very much. I want to thank everybody for your participation and Dave for your report. We're not voting against you, David. It's just the situation with the properties there. So I do thank you for your time involved in the work that you put into this. And there's always two sides to every story, and certainly I think we got both sides tonight. So thank you very much. And so that motion has carried. So thank you. Now we're moving on. Item 6.21 is with regards to bylaw 3720, Boersma Family Farms, and this is also a consent application report. And we do have Evan Sugan, planner on behalf of Perth County. So Evan, if I didn't pronounce your last name properly, I apologize. Anyways, I turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Mayor McKenzie.
Was I close?
You were pretty close. It's Sugden, but
Sugden. Okay.
You wouldn't be the first to get it wrong. So through you, Your Worship, my name is Evan Sugden. I'm a planner with MHBC Planning in Kitchener, and some of you may have recognized me from previous reports, but we've been retained by Perth County to provide development review support for applications circulated through the county. We did receive this application for a surplus farm dwelling severance in West Perth along line 39. It's application B3720. And to help speed up the process, I'm going to share my screen with you. So you should be able to see here, this is the severance sketch that was submitted. The purpose of the application is to sever a residential dwelling lot that has been deemed surplus to a consolidated farm operation. So this is the subject property here. The property is owned by Ross and Hazel Jordan, and the applicant is Boersma Family Farms Incorporated, who are the owners of other farm operations in Perth County. The intent of the application is for Boersma Family Farms to purchase the farm operation from the Jordans, and the Jordans would sever off the residential portion, as that would be a surplus residential lot to the Boersma Family Farms. The Jordans would remain on the severed lot. No new development is proposed as a result of this application, simply drawing a new lot line in the corner. And I'll zoom in here. You can see this forms Schedule A to my report. So as you can see, the existing dwelling here is a two-story farmhouse, and the lot that's proposed to be severed is currently developed with an access off of line 39. There is another access off Perth Road 164, but the intent is to keep the access off line 39 as there's less traffic. There's a metal drive shed. There is a septic area here south of the house. There's a pump house, and there's a well for the water service inside that pump house. And hydro is provided from the grid off of a hydro pole here. And there's a light standard. The county has reviewed the application against the criteria in the surplus farm dwelling severance policies in the county official plan, and have agreed that it is in conformity with the county official plan policies with respect to those surplus farm dwelling severance criteria. And to keep things short and sweet, if you have questions, you can ask me after, but the recommendation is that council receive the report for information, and further that they recommend to the Land Division Committee that the application for this surplus farm dwelling severance be approved, subject to the conditions attached to the report. And I'll leave it at that, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to provide some additional details. I know that everybody's been sitting here a little while, so please fire away. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I am. I do that all the time. I'm usually allowed one mistake a night, but this is two. So anyways, thank you, Evan. So questions with regards to this severance? Anybody? Deputy Mayor Ike.
This is my Uncle Ross, so I really shouldn't speak, but is the only reason this one's like, if Boersman's bought the farm and severed the house and sold it back to him, we wouldn't even see this, correct? Like, is that why it's here tonight? Because
No, it's here because it's an application for severance and we have to comment whether we're in favor of it or not, whether we support
well, I
it.
thought we were making these simple ones easier at the county. Sorry. I thought that was Sally's was going to make these cut and dried ones simpler, but okay, that no problem.
Evan, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Your Worship. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Maybe I could provide a little bit of light on that and just clarity. Mayor McKenzie is correct, and that is in order to get the severance in the first place, they have to proceed with the application. Sally McMullen's delegated authority is at the Land Division Committee level. So essentially, based on the outcome of tonight's meeting, if there's no contention or opposition against the application, and subsequently, if there's no contention or opposition received from the public following of the notice of circulation, then Sally McMullen can use her delegated authority to approve without going to the Land Division Committee. So it saves the applicant a second step.
Other questions? Okay, the recommendation is here, and it's fairly lengthy. Basically, the long and short of it is, and I'll read the conditions. Actually, it's longer than I thought. It's 2 pages. Has everybody read the recommendations? And I'm assuming you had. We've had it all weekend. Is everybody in favor of the recommendation with the 7 recommendations, or 8 conditions rather, that apply to that? Is everybody in favor of that? Nicholas? Oh, you're muted,
Yep.
Nicholas.
Shoot. I will move
couldn't
it.
resist telling you that.
Yes, I would like to move that, Walter.
Okay, so moved by Nicholas, seconded by Anna Marie Murray, Councillor Murray. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, that is carried. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thanks, Evan. Very good. I hope we didn't leave you out in the hall too long, but we had quite a discussion here on a couple issues. So thank you very much.
Oh, not a problem. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay, night. All right. Next is the library report, and Anna Marie, are you doing this one or not?
No, I think we have our librarian here with us tonight.
Okay.
Rosemary, are you there?
There she is.
I am. Your Worship, members of council, good evening. I had the pleasure of being introduced to you last month, and I also was able to finally meet Councillor Murray in person at last week's board meeting. Further to the board report submitted pertaining to last Tuesday's library board meeting, the board would like to fill 2 vacancies on the library board. The second of these vacancies was created this summer when 1 member moved out of West Perth. So the board would like to move toward filling these 2 vacancies. Also mentioned in the report is a potential change to the library's hours of operation. Currently, the library is open 32 of its 44 regular hours due to pandemic restrictions. Once it does open to full hours, and this likely will be in the new year, again, when the pandemic restrictions are lifted for Ontario, we'd like to offer optimized hours of service. So hours that are convenient to serving the community. Beginning today, we have launched a community survey to ask the public their opinion on convenient library hours. Optimized hours would necessitate a larger staff complement. The library also discussed a branding initiative, which would include a logo and an updated website. So we're looking at local vendors to provide quotes on this type of work. And finally, the board discussed a number of possible capital projects that would refresh library spaces for patrons and that would create a workspace for the staff. Again, we're investigating quotes for these projects. that we are interested in pursuing at this time. And that is a summary of the report. Are there any questions I may be able to answer for you?
Okay, questions? Councillor Chinkowski?
I guess a general question, Rosemary, the changes or the contemplated changes to the space. Is there any indication as to whether those changes will, how they relate to the asset management plan? Does that meet or match or exceed what's outlined in the asset management plan? Is there any, do you know at this time, or is that not known yet?
It's not known at the moment. These are items that have incurred some damage and wear and tear since the 12 years that have passed after the renovations that were completed in 2008. So that's currently what we're looking at, but the asset management plan will be observed as well.
Okay, thanks, Rosemary.
Good to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions with regard to the report? Okay, good. Thank you very much, Rosemary.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, moving on, we have the operations manager's report here. Mike, there he is. Okay, I turn the floor over to you, Mike.
Good evening. I'd just like to present my operations report for the month of October. Health and safety, we did a lot of health and safety training over the last 2 months, a couple of months. We completed all of our training actually last week, and we participated, or we allowed Perth South to participate with us in our dump truck and greater operation training to help saving on some of the costs that we incurred. You can see our current road operations are completed in our ongoing projects. We will be concentrating on, of course, the leaf collection and our road grading prior to the winter season hitting us. And of course, we're already prepared for winter maintenance operations, and we'll be shutting down our parks over the next month. We should be completed that by the end of November. Tenders and contracts. I'm seeking pre-budget approval request from council on a couple of 2021 capital projects. First one is a tandem dump truck chassis for the estimated cost of $160,000, and this is a route tender with the County of Perth and Perth South. I'm also looking for pre-approval for our rural paving of line 53. It was scheduled for our resurfacing in 2022. However, Perth County is doing their Moncton project, line 55 next year, and we would like to piggyback off them. Our estimated cost for that is $515,000. And we'd also like pre-approval for structure 028F. And 028F is a boundary bridge with Perth South, and our estimated cost for that is $225,000. Is there any questions about any of those projects?
Just one question, Mike. The 225, is that the total cost or our share?
The 225 is our share.
Our share, okay. Okay, thank you. Any other question? Oh, Nicholas.
A couple of them then. On the bridge, has Perth South given their approval to get that job done or quoted out or tendered out already?
Yes, we've received our OSM reports, talked to Perth South. We've already started the pre-engineering, and they will be going to their council for pre-approval. However, still, it all is still subject to actual approvals when the tenders do come in.
Okay. And then the one that you're bumping from 2022 down to 2021, would we drop a project in 2021 if we're going to bump this one up a year?
So in our capital planning that we've done for the last 15 years, we basically keep to the same dollar amount. And all we're really doing is just changing the location. So line 49 was supposed to be paved this year or in 2021. And now we just flip those two projects around. So we're going to flip 53 with 49 and then do 49 in 2022.
Other questions? I can't resist asking you this, Mike. Have we got all the tenders from 2020 yet?
Like,
I'm thinking pickup trucks.
we have tendered everything. Most of our construction projects are completed, actually, except for one. And we're still waiting for our equipment. Our 1-ton truck and our pickup trucks are delayed. We're expecting them late December, early January.
Right. Okay. Dean, I think, had a question. Yes.
Well, I have to ask Mike the same question that I asked the head librarian about how these proposed expenditures align with the asset management plan. Does that keep us on pace, or are we still behind, or does that put us ahead of the curve?
We are exactly on pace for all my department stuff for asset management. We're sticking to our capital plans that we approved a long time ago. So that way we're only dealing with inflation costs on a yearly basis versus the big highs and lows at budget times.
Good. Thank you, Mike.
Okay. Any other questions? I do have a recommendation here then. We might as well deal with it right now when we're talking about it. And it is that West Perth pre-approve 2021 capital expenditures on a tandem dump truck chassis, line 53 paving, and bridge 28F structure replacement. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Tam and Councillor Rose. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, Mike.
You can see a list of our contracts. We've completed St. George, Toronto Street, Eleanor, and Napier Street paving. The Henry Street Bridge is well open now, as reported in the press. And Clayton Street sidewalk, that was delayed. The contractor disappeared on us. He was supposed to return today, but of course, the weather has impacted us there. Hopefully he'll be returning there tomorrow. We'll be seeing them on Clayton Street doing the sidewalk tomorrow. The last part of my report is our winter operations planning and contingency plan. Over the last month, all of us, public roads managers, directors, whatever you want to call us, have met multiple times to discuss how we are going to deal with winter. Of course, last year we escaped COVID right after the winter season was completed. So we've been busy preparing for how to deal with the situations this year that are now upon us. We wish they were delayed a little bit, but they are upon us right now. We have included Todd McCone in a lot of these discussions, and he's helped and assisted us in multiple ways. The first one is a reduced minimum standards report. Hopefully you've all received it. This is to deal with COVID, and specifically COVID. If it impacts 3 or more of my employees, we can then institute a declaration to decrease our minimum standards guideline to help assist us in dealing with not having the staff to actually physically do the work. As council is well aware of, we actually do not have any spare employees, part-time employees or backup employees. Every piece of equipment that we have is spoken for and we are running it. So if there's any questions on that, I'm more than happy to answer them.
So when we're short of employees and we're really short of help, isn't that when we put the head librarian out in a snowplow?
You can, but I'm not sure you want her in.
I don't suppose
we
she
will
wants
not be
to do
sending
that.
her down River Road in Fullerton as our first plow road. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
So I also want to stipulate that of the 3 things that I'll be discussing tonight, that the reduced minimum standards report, also the declaration of the significant weather event. And we will be, county council will be receiving a report on Thursday regarding a mutual aid agreement. Public Works will be entering, or will be wishing to enter into a mutual aid agreement, quite similar to the exact same format as fire. And this is another contingency plan to help assist one another if one of us run into certain issues. So I'll now, if there is no, is there any questions regarding the minimum standards report?
Councillor Murray has a question.
I just wanted to clarify, this has a lot to do with liability. Is that right, Mike?
Yes, all of our winter maintenance, we have certain, it's called minimum maintenance standards, regulation 239-02 that we have to adhere by. And for some reason, if we're short staffed, we cannot physically possibly get the routes done in time. So this gives us that leeway to prove that they're in a state of repair, which gives us more time to deal with the issues at hand.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Mike? Okay. Maybe we deal with what you've done so far. Or do you have anything else you wanted to talk about, Mike?
So no, the first one is the reduced minimum maintenance standards, which would there is a bylaw attached that Carla was grateful enough to do for me, and it's just gives me or someone else the authority to delegate that reduced minimum standards at a certain point in time.
Right. Okay. I'll read the recommendations here then, and then we can deal with them and go on from there. So the first one is the reduced road maintenance standard, and the recommendation is that West Perth receives the reduced road maintenance standard report for information, and that West Perth Council hereby delegates the authority to the operations manager or designate to declare a reduced road maintenance standard on a temporary basis in the case of a major human health event impacting essential staff or a significant incident damaging critical infrastructure necessary to maintain operations through the adoption of bylaw 6820. So do we have a mover and seconder for that recommendation? Councillor Matheson, Councillor Murray. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. And the next one then is the significant weather event, and the recommendation is that West Perth receives the significant weather event, Ontario Regulation 23902, report for information, and that West Perth Council hereby delegates the authority to the manager or designate to declare the beginning and the end of a significant weather event for the purposes of administrating the Municipal Act 2001 Reg 23902 minimum maintenance standards for municipal highways through the adoption of bylaw 67/2020. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Rose, Councillor Bell, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. Anything else, Mike?
I just want to clarify that only one of these would be implemented at a time. So of course, we'll be carrying on with our normal operations and planning for winter. If we do get hit with COVID, we'd implement the reduced standards. And if there is a snowmageddon, then we would declare a significant weather event, but there will never be an event or a situation where we'll have two of these implemented at the same time.
Well, there might be an occasion where you have both happen at the same time. You never know.
So.
Okay, thanks, Mike. The next item, 6.5, is Treasurer's Report. And I don't see Carla, or I see Carla, but I don't see Angela. Are you doing this, Carla?
No, I believed the treasurer was to be joining us this evening. I did,
Okay.
but
Do you want to give her a call and we'll go to the next item?
yeah, sounds good.
Would that be okay?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do that. There is no correspondence. Council reports, okay? We'll deal with council reports and we'll come back to the treasurer's report. So the first report is the Logan Recreation Complex Committee meeting of October the 21st. So Dean, I believe that's your ballywick.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So we had a meeting, I think pretty close to the first time in over almost a year since we had our last meeting. So there was one delegation from Pat Burfelds from North Perth, as well as Rebecca Deckert-Sage to discuss the library. The library is open and ready for business. Pat Burfelds reiterated previous position that no additional costs would be incurred by either North Perth or West Perth with regards to the library and daycare operation. That was to be a self-sufficient situation with no impact on the actual arena and recreation facilities operations. And of course, the new library now meets the provincial standards requirements. So that objective has finally been achieved after a lot of wringing of hands and possibly gnashing of teeth with the various meetings they've had over time. With regards to the recreation and the arena part of the meeting itself, we went over the budget as well as the interim manager's report. Interesting to note in the interim manager's report, all the different steps and protocols they took dealing with the COVID situation. The manager lays it out in great detail in the report. I guess the significance of COVID with respect to the ice rental, they're down on their ice rental so far this year, to the tune to my estimate is about $18,000 to $19,000, given the hours reported by the manager and using the rate of $135 an hour for ice rental. There's been a lag in the start of the different seasons for ice sports. So seasons that would have started in early September are only really gearing up now in terms of practices and games. So that's part of the explanation for the lag, but nonetheless, that's almost $19,000 in revenue that hasn't been collected to date. And my check of the budget seems to indicate we're about $60,000 short in overall revenue to meet the year-end budget goals. So to that end, the North Perth staff are still actively advertising and seeking rentals to book as much open ice time as possible. And I'm informed that there was no lost rental time due to any COVID policies that may have been put in place by North Perth at any point in time. I guess my only other comment on the budget is the numbers that they've got in the 2021 budget in terms of revenue projections, my opinion seems seems rather ambitious and aggressive. So I've requested another meeting in early January to focus on budget, get some budget to actual numbers received for 2020, and then get an update on where the situation lies for going forward in 2021. But it's pretty obvious, and I'm sure if Darcy were here, he would say the same thing, that the longer this COVID situation continues to impact our level of social activity, then there'll be reduced usage and reduced revenues. But unfortunately, the overhead and the basic operation costs won't decrease. So there's going to be deficits, continued deficits, just a question of how much and for how long. That's kind of the essence of my report from that meeting.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Any questions for Dean on his report? Okay. Environmental services, Cheryl?
Yeah, just if anybody has any questions, we do have a couple of recommendations that are being brought forth by the committee.
Okay, before we deal with the recommendations, is there any questions for Cheryl on the meeting itself and what took place? Okay, seeing none. Recommendation, there's a couple here. First one is that we accept the recommendation of the Environmental Services Committee to approve option 3 of the proposed wastewater financial plan of 2020 to 2025 as presented by BM Ross at the Environmental Services Committee meeting October the 21st. And I don't know if anybody on that committee wants to, I'm kind of looking at Cheryl or even Dean or Steve, just highlight how we arrived at that. And it kind of ties in with Dean's comments about asset management and paybacks and one thing and another. So I don't know if anybody has a question on that. Cheryl?
I was going to say that we had 4 options, and the option that we chose was one that would keep us in line with maintaining our current rate of replacement of our infrastructure of 36 years. So that was kind of the recommendation that the committee came up with, just to keep pace with our replacement. And that's just replacement. That's not
right.
That's not actually if we have to build new.
No. That good explanation, Cheryl. It's just again, as I said, it ties in with asset management, but we know what the life expectancy of some of this equipment is, and we're just budgeting that when that time period is up, that we have the funding available to replace it. So if there is no further questions, I've read the recommendation. Do we have a mover and seconder for that recommendation? Cheryl, thank you. And Steve will second that, okay? All right, so all those in favor of that recommendation? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. The second recommendation that's there is that we received recommendations of the Environmental Services Committee regarding the amendments to the fees and charges bylaw and direct staff to include the recommendations on the 2021 fees and charges bylaw. And they are as follows: bulk water rate be changed to a flat rate of $3.45 per cubic meter. A tipping fee at the domestic landfill will increase from 74 per metric ton to 80 per metric ton, and a bag fee at the domestic landfill will be abolished and a minimum charge of $10 be applied. And that's the end of that recommendation. So I don't know, Cheryl, you want to explain anything more on that one?
I think, yeah, it's fairly straightforward. Staff did researched out the other municipalities with the bulk water rate, and we are still actually the lowest tipping fees at $80. And I think it's just was more or less the $10 fee was to eliminate the $2 bag fee.
Okay. Any further questions on that recommendation? Okay, if not, do we have a mover and seconder for that recommendation? Cheryl's going to move it. Do we have a seconder? Sherry, did you have your hand up there? Okay, so moved by Cheryl, seconded by Sherry. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. And the next recommendation is that West Perth accepts reports from staff and councillors as presented. And before I go with this one, I'm going to ask, and we can't get a hold of Angela. So with your permission, I would suggest we just defer her report until our next meeting. Would that meet your approval? And it's a fairly lengthy report, or at least there was a lot of reading there, especially on the asset management thing. But if we just defer her report and have her come at the next meeting, does that meet with your approval? I got some nods, so.
That would be appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So that's what we'll do. So then I'll carry on with this other recommendation that we accept reports from staff and councillors as presented, and further that all committee minutes and correspondence not specifically dealt with by resolution be received and filed. Have a mover and seconder for that one. Councillor Rose, Councillor Marshall, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. And I don't know if there's going to be a lot of questions for Angela, but I found the asset management pretty deep reading. Well, I wouldn't say deep, it was just a lot of reading, and it took me a couple nights to get through it. But I think it's very similar to what we have had in place. But anyways, we can ask her. Nicholas?
I was just going to add that I was a little disappointed when they said no changes were made since they presented it. And that means to me that they didn't take even a single consideration from us after they presented it into account. And so I found that disappointing. And as usual, I couldn't support any of the three strategies for closing that funding gap when we have our operations manager saying, hey, we're on track, yet the consultant says we're short money. So I think there's some work to do still there.
Well, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Nicholas, but that the dates on that report were still 2018 and 19, were they not? Was there anything in there 2020?
No.
I didn't think so. So that's what makes me wonder if it's the same report and just coming back at us. But anyway, we'll wait until Angela's here and she can tell us a little bit more about it. I have a number of bylaws here to be passed, and as a matter of fact, we have 6. And so we're going to break them down by the looks of it here. Yeah, because some of them are drained. So first one is that Municipality of West Perth gives third and final reading to bylaw 55, 2020, the second day of November, and that the mayor and clerk are hereby directed to sign and affix the corporate seal. And that is with regards to the Haggerty drain, municipal drain. So we have a mover and seconder for that one. Nicholas and Dean, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Thank you. The next bylaw is bylaw 56, being a bylaw to provide for drainage works in the municipality of West Perth for the Wasman Drain Improvement 2019. And this is the one that Dean has declared a conflict of interest on. So do we have a mover and seconder for that one? Councillor Rose, Deputy Mayor Ait, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. The next one is that West Perth gives third and final reading to bylaw 56. That's the one we just did, sorry. Bylaw 57, the Council of West Perth gives third and final reading to bylaw 57, the second day of November. And that is for the Wiles main drain and the Anderson branch improvement. Do we have a mover and seconder for that one? Councillor Murray, Councillor Matheson. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Bylaw 67 is a bylaw to delegate authority of the operations manager or designate to declare the beginning and the end of a significant weather event for the purposes of administrating the Municipal Act 2001, Reg 23902, minimum maintenance standards for municipal highways. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Deputy Mayor Ait and Councillor Bell. Any further discussion on that one? I think Mike explained that one fairly well. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Bylaw 68 is a bylaw to delegate authority of the operations manager or designate to declare a reduced road maintenance standard by purpose of administrating the Municipal Act 2001, Ontario Reg 23902, minimum maintenance standards for municipal highways. Any further questions? Okay, all those, mover and seconder, Councillor Harold moves and Councillor Matheson seconds that. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. And I think that's it for bylaws. Okay.
One more.
Oh, one more? Okay.
There's one more bylaw.
Okay, 69. Okay, all right. Thank you very much. West Perth gives first, second, and third and final reading to bylaw 67, and 68 and 69, the second date of November, and the mayor and clerk are hereby directed to sign. And that's the agreement for the bus stops for the county of Perth, yes. Any questions on that one? Okay, if not, do we have a mover and seconder for that one? Councillor Rose, Councillor Murray, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you. All right, upcoming events. Next meeting will be November the 16th, and the Municipal Day is 2 days afterwards on the 18th. When do we have to let you know, Carla, when who's going and what, or not who's going, but who's going to be online?
Yes, I think the invitation, the registration goes directly to the link that's provided in that original invitation.
Okay, all right.
That will register you for Zoom.
And there's no charge this year, is that not right? Like there's no fee.
No
Yeah.
charge and no lunch.
And no lunch, yeah, okay. Where's Cheryl? Anything further to add to that, Cheryl? Like, you're muted, by the way.
You mean me? You mean Sherry, not Cheryl?
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, Sherry.
Cheryl's more than welcome to give her opinion.
Yeah,
no, but I think you do want to hear what Paul has to say. I was chatting with him the other day about his topics, and he's got a lot to talk about. So I think you definitely want to come and hear what he has to say. That's for sure.
Okay, thank you. All right. And then it's listed there, upcoming council events, and we're into December already. So any notices of motion? Any other business? Oh, sorry, Councillor Trinkowski.
Thanks, Your Worship. I guess I just wanted to draw people's attention back to something that's contained in the interim manager's report for the Alma Logan Recreation Complex. It's on page 3 of the report, and it talks about a council visioning meeting that North Perth undertakes, as well as departmental plans as part of their corporate implementation plan. And we've kind of touched on it, I think, last week or last council meeting here at West Perth when we were trying to set out the schedule for meetings. And I can't help but think that it would be appropriate if we, as council and department heads, including the treasurer and the clerk and the CAO, if we kind of had a report from each of those people, what their objectives are for the upcoming year, and then find out what those objectives mean in terms of money required, physical resources, human resources, and that sort of thing. I don't mean to have it into an overblown strategic planning session, but just kind of an annual, more of a process of discussion and consideration before we receive the budget, the proposed budget itself, just some lead up and discussion throughout the days leading up to the budget presentation. We've talked about it before other times, but it just seems to me there's a lot of stuff, a lot of items on our plate that need attention that we haven't talked about yet this year, and we're already midway through the term. Like I'm thinking about the administration building, even something as simple as the Fullerton Dam, or even what council's thoughts and ideas are on what to do once Standard Products closes down, or Continental Tire, once that factory closes down. What's our role there to try and bring another business into that facility? Things of that nature. I think deserve some time and consideration when we meet together as a group. So I just wanted to put that out there and get people's thoughts or ideas about that.
Okay, and I know that staff have talked about this, and some of it is that it's a case of they're waiting on a little bit more information to proceed further. The comment about Continental Tire, they're not done with the building until, and I forget the date, it's sometime next year, I believe. But
March or April.
I believe it's, April maybe of next year, but the province is on that, is my understanding, and they're trying to help Continental market that particular building. So, but no, point taken, Dean, and we'll keep that in mind. We have no closed session tonight, so that basically pretty well wraps it up. We do have a confirmatory bylaw, and bylaw number 70 that we read a first, second, and third time to confirm the proceedings of our meeting tonight. Do we have a mover and seconder for that one? Don't everybody jump at once. Councillor Tam and Councillor Harold, thank you. All those in favor? That is carried. And finally, a motion to adjourn, that West Perth adjourn this council meeting at 9:12 p.m. Mover and seconder for that. Councillor Marshall and Councillor Tam, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very